So for the people who may not know what you're up to, can you just give us a breakdown of what you do? Because it's quite fascinating.
Currently, I'm a professional mixed martial artist. I train out of Seksan Jinjira Muay Thai and Gracie Gym in Richardson. I train every single day, and my current mission is to compete as much as I can, secure as many titles as much as possible in all the promotions, and retire, hopefully as the best of all time, till the end of time. My dream.
Wow, I love that. And you also have another kind of American dream where you are quite business oriented as well, right?
Yes. Right now I'm studying real estate, and I'm on my way to becoming a real estate agent. So on my off time, I like to see the development of houses, even getting my hands dirty, fixing the house, going through the procedures, seeing the house like an opponent. I want to be able to sell houses like this too. Hopefully one day I can go commercial. We don't know, we see.
Well, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
and that your sports play, your competition, it plays a large part of your life, I'm sure.
Big time, big time. I'm always in that state every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want young Americans to learn from it? Because not just young Americans, but older, I say it kind of harshly sometimes that I think we are not only physically weak as a population, but quite mentally and morally and spiritually weak too. And I've heard a lot of men these days talking about getting into the field that you're in because it equips you and it makes you stronger as an individual. Would you say that that's the case?
For sure, absolutely. I think being an athlete, engaging inside of sports and competition, and as well, or even martial arts itself, for me anyway, number one is humility. Number one is humility, because you have to be willing to fall down again and again and again, stand up again. I think it's in judo, they have that saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8 times, like this. And in that, you learn to perseverance, endure hardship, and have a good attitude at the same time, right? And in this, we see high amounts of compassion. All of my opponents I have ever fought in my entire life, we fight, and then after, we're friends.
Really?
Normal.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yes, and in that, there is no resentment, but dignity, a dignifying honor to be able to showcase martial arts in the ring for the audience to see. And in reality, martial arts is very, very brutal. It is very, very mean, right? And in that, when you see 2 individuals going at it like this, and then at the end, thanking each other, like, that's my teacher, because I train every day, sharpen my skills. Afterwards, I fight. I can see how sharp my technique is. And because of that, only because my opponent, I am given this opportunity. If I succeed, I am grateful. If I fail, I am grateful, because now I know where to go.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Would you say that your family story, because I want to transition into that now, would you say that everything your family's been through has given you a certain value set and view of the world?
Absolutely. My family, my grandparents, my father, and I don't want to speak only upon my behalf.
Yeah.
I want to speak upon the behalf of people from all around the world who want to come here and live inside the United States. And I'm very young from that generation. I'm like the youngest lineage of that. But for refugees, for the refugee population, especially Chinese refugees, during the time, there was a lot of conflict, and there was a big change in the Cultural Revolution. And a lot of people died for this. Many times you see these events happening in like movies, in the famous martial arts movies of Shaolin Temple. They see Shaolin Temple being destroyed over 3 times. They rebuild the temple, they destroy the temple, rebuild, destroy again, burning the books, all of those things, right? But it has such a rich culture and knowledge on being a decent human being, and as well as evolving human beings, you know? And my grandparents really believed in things like that. My grandparents stood for a lot of good things, you know, and I'm sure they're proud of that. My father had to flee, and he went to Vietnam. And in that, I believe that that's when war was happening at the time. And because of that, he encountered American soldiers for the first time. Can you imagine how scary that can be for someone to like live in such an Oriental culture for a long time, and then one day you just go somewhere, blonde hair, blue eyes, who are you? and they give you applesauce. And then he ate applesauce. He didn't know what it was.
Oh, that's crazy.
He was dumbfounded. He says, "This is amazing. Is this really an apple?" He's like, "Yeah, applesauce with cinnamon." Loved it.
Oh my gosh.
Because life at that time, very, very hard. And in some degree, I can relate with my father as well, being a boxer.
Really?
Yeah, of course, because I think a lot of the common stereotype is that most Asian people, you see us eating rice, like stuff like that in a large abundance. But really, my father has verbally told me he didn't encounter rice for almost 5 to 6 years.
When he was
When he was
young.
when he was over there during the war.
Oh.
And in that, he would go to the communist base. He'd steal bags of rice, and he would hear the sound of a metal wasp, like a wasp or a bee, going right past you, very quiet but very fast. And in that, it didn't matter. You're hungry. You know what I mean? You're hungry, and he has brothers and sisters, half brothers and sisters he wants to take care of. And in that, he took the risk. He took the risk because the reward meant a lot for him.
Now, was this when he was in Vietnam or China?
Vietnam.
Okay.
Vietnam.
And so they would steal from the communist base?
Yes,
Oh, boy.
to take rice to feed to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
As he slowly started to get older, he started to find information and tell the American spies certain locations, certain habits. And if you want to talk about, we watch movies about like ninjas, samurai, and stuff like that. If you want to talk about things like that, I feel like that was where it was happening.
Wow.
Where a man can dress up as a window washer, wash a window for maybe 2 weeks or so, find a habit, exploit the habit, and then help out the American soldiers in a sense like that at a very young age. You know what I mean? At a very young age. And yes, he didn't always succeed. Not always. And there was casualties for sure. But when he raised me, he always held me up to that expectation that one little mistake can cost lives of 15, 20 people at that time, right?
Well, I love how you make that connection, because what I always say is I want to interview people like you. I want to hear family stories of actual trials and tribulations caused by radical leftism. Because right now, when we see things happening in America or when we hear what's going on worldwide, people say, oh, this reminds me of V for Vendetta, or this reminds me of the book 1984. And I'm sure people, enjoy joking about ninjas and joking about these sports as hobbies, when in reality, you can personally attest to how important those skills were to have when you're actually working to provide for your community and save your family.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing.
Yeah. He was actually in prison in the Vietnamese jail for a long time.
How did he end up there?
During that time, he told me that when the communists, they have a lot of, privilege when you go anywhere. And so he was from a neighborhood called District 11. Now in Vietnam, they don't call it District 11. They call it, in the English translation, it's like the large market. So it's a very, very big Chinatown with alleyways and all that stuff. There's a lot of street food and walkways. Very beautiful place. He had seen the son of a communist member's. The son would go inside of a restaurant and harass waitresses, harass people who are selling food, or even eating, never paying, or kind of like taking advantage of their privilege a little way too far at the time. No one dared complain. And one day he saw the harassment of a waitress, and then one day he saw the man, and after the man thought nothing of him, hurt him, not take his life, but hurt him very, very badly. Very, very badly. My dad he could really hurt people, but he never wanted to take a life because we have a Buddhist practice in our family, right? And at that time in Vietnam, you can fight very, very hard, but if you take someone's life, the punishment is your life is taken. So he was playing on thin ice from, in a sense of retaliation, I guess, in his sense of justice. And it ended him up in the Vietnamese prison for a long time, tortured. and starved for a long time for the entire neighborhood. And his entire neighborhood waited for him to be released. 6 months.
Wow.
They waited for a long time. And in that, he told me that he would see daylight from a little hole in a cell. That was the only time he knew the time it was, when the sun came and it set for 6 months. And in that, he took upon the recitation of the Buddha, where he would recite the mantras. And in our culture, we recite the mantras maybe 108 times, 1,000 times, 1 million times, 100,000 times, chanting like this. And he would say that to have peace in his mind, knowing that he would be released. The highest level of, I think one of the highest teachings my father gave me was that even though he had received a lot of even racism in his own country, you know what I mean? Being mixed with Vietnamese and Chinese,
Yeah.
and you're in Vietnam, they will hate you if you even speak a Chinese word.
Really?
Yeah, at the time,
Okay,
yes.
so there was racism between the Vietnamese and the Chinese.
Yes, and there was discrimination, and in that, his hardest challenge was maintaining compassion for his own people and maintaining compassion for the soldiers who were treating him that way. Because when he saw it, he realized that for what they believed was right, and at times those soldiers also didn't have a place, didn't have the liberty, didn't have the freedom to think morally right? From a youth to an adult, which is why their lives were that way.
Wow.
In living on both places, he could see those things. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, speaking of faith, so your family's Buddhist.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that go back many generations?
Many, many generations.
Okay.
Many generations.
Now, that brings us kind of to the Cultural Revolution of China. Let's get more into detail on that one, because this is not something that's covered in the American public education system enough. Most young people don't know. I don't know if I showed you before we started filming, but there's original copies of Mao's Little Red Book over there from the 1960s.
Yes.
And your grandparents were around for the Cultural Revolution, right?
Yes.
Now, was part of this that they had such deep faith in Buddhism? And what was happening is the communist Chinese needed to eliminate the four olds. So getting rid of old customs, habits, traditions.
Teachings.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so part of that was Buddhism. Was that partly why they were attacked, or what put them in bad light with the communists?
It was that because the Buddhism, because of the Buddhist practice, was also seen as almost like a yogic practice. You can have a yoga practice and even a physical practice, a lot of actions, a lot of, I feel like it almost looked pagan sometimes because we would burn things, we would have smells and like these prayers and the pujas, the rituals and stuff. And at that time, I feel like they didn't want those things, the old customs, even martial arts, old techniques from back in the day. Yes.
Martial arts was attacked in the Cultural Revolution.
Great martial artists were annihilated.
Wow.
Destroyed because of the passage of lineage. So in martial arts culture, especially in China, it's very in Cantonese we call it like jiaoga, which means like the house style, right? So you would have like towns with like a certain style, other provinces and areas in China had like a certain discipline, but it got to where the martial arts practice was very, very high to where they had to change it and turn it into like a dancing like form to practice, right? And when they would see you teaching martial artists together, showing like combative techniques, the communists are afraid of being overthrown.
Oh.
During this time was when, especially if you want to talk about martial arts culture, is that after even that feudal era, the medieval era of China, afterwards, those martial arts families slowly became like mafias. Yes, like triads. Yes, that's where the triads originally came from.
Okay.
Was the heart of the triads was really to overthrow a corrupt government, right? And so they trained in secrecy. They pass on practices and knowledge and experiences to their youths. and onwards and onwards and onwards. And they would practice and they would celebrate by doing like martial arts shows out in the streets, or like wearing the Chinese dragon, and they would do their martial arts techniques with the dragon in a sense like that. And so it was a way of like saying, ha ha, communists. Like, we're still practicing, but you don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's very smart. No, I always wonder, I think the history of China is beautiful. I mean, the culture, the tradition, and it was annihilated, like you said, with this Cultural Revolution. And that was on purpose. It's because culture binds people together. It gives them something to be proud of. It gives them something to fight for. It's just like family and faith and all these great things in a society. And the communists can't have that. So has your family ever talked about how sad it was to see the attacks on such a beautiful country?
No one wants to talk about it.
Wow.
When you, even I myself, I've been through a lot. And in my private life, I've seen many things. And when you never experience brutality, real brutality, you know what I mean? You, subconsciously, the human mind will seek it. I don't know, I want to know, I want to find out. People who actually, when you actually have been through war, and even I myself inside the ring, you only become more humane. You only become more humane. You only find more compassion and more value for human life. You see how important it is that you can stand up, you can walk, you have all your fingers, your feet, your joints, you're healthy, you have a healthy mind. Your parents bless you with those things, you know what I mean? And you have the freedom to enjoy that, right? Sometimes over there, you don't know. And that's not knowing is very, very, that's more worse than knowing, right? Living years and years and years, not knowing how your life is going to be. You can work hard, you can be smart. You can have a good work ethic. You can be very, very righteous and have values with your friends. But because of where you are, you can never make it. Just because of where you are, right? And so that itself is, that is a prison. And they have that saying, you know, I think I said that to you on the phone. The saying, there was a proverb that it says, the best slave is the one who believes he is free, right? He doesn't know he's in prison. And it is the same way as one of my favorite, he was one of my favorite coaches. And he was a buddy of mine from New York. He teach jiu-jitsu at Renzo Gracie Academy. He told me this story about how they trained circus elephants. He asked me that one day. And we finished training one day and he asked me, there was some sort of principle behind it. How do they train circus elephants? Do you know? They take the elephant when it's a baby and they tie shackles around the baby elephant's leg. If the baby elephant tries to fight with the shackles, they find a giant hole and they beat him. They hurt him, they abuse him, and then they put him in the hole where the baby elephant can only see the sunlight like this. Eventually, when the baby elephant's hungry, they feed it, they clothe it, and now the elephant believes that these humans are God. So now now in a little like role-playing role, right? Now you have the elephant here, and now you have the person saying, I control how much you eat. I control where you sleep, where you live, where you stay, how much you have, how much you cannot have, when you have it, like this, right? The elephant grows up believing that these little humans are God. Now they go to the circus and the elephant is now big, very, very big. And they put the shackles on his leg. And easy, you know in the bottom of your heart, if that elephant had just kicked one time, it would have broken the shackles. But it dare not. It would not do it because of the way it was raised. Now, at the end of that teaching, they left that story as is for all of us fighters to just like sit there and think about it. And we wanted to ask, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? They say nothing. They didn't say nothing. So I thought to myself, do you have a shackle on your leg? Did you know it was there? How long has it been there? And who put it there, right? That is the question I want to ask a lot of people. This shackle can be your attachment to a vice, an addiction, or even an influential, misleading information into the mind, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, the most important thing for American, you asked me earlier, what do I wish American youths would understand? I think a lot of American youths today are very, very passionate. And I think they're very, very good people, very, very kind people at heart. We are raised to be this way.
Yeah.
We're very, very pure-hearted people at first. And we want to be a part of something of value and feel important. But most importantly, when you invest your passion and your energy into all those things, you must look further down the road so that people you may not know, people who may never see you, hundreds of years, thousands of years from now, right? They can say, thank you so much for what you did, right?
Yeah.
That's compassion, right? Before we had the iTouch. You remember the iTouch?
Oh,
iPod
yes.
Touch?
Oh,
You
I
remember-
had one of those.
Yeah, you remember that. But before then, I had a Nokia phone, the little
Okay,
brick one.
yep.
Yeah. And can you imagine? Think about this. Now we're talking about that, right? Can you imagine how long somebody stayed up at night trying to figure out how to create this phone? You don't know. Long time. Maybe they lost years of their life from gray hairs trying to figure it out, right? Why? So that communication can be easier for somebody they may never meet, for the next generation to evolve, right? My success will be all of your successes. Because of my success, people will be able to be more successful, much more easier than my struggles. Parents are the same way. They struggle, they go through hard. Why? So their kid, they don't have to struggle as much, right? Your parents work very, very hard for their children. And in that, I hope that American youths, when you think about that, always consider this. When you learn something, you want to teach the teacher, right? You want to learn something so that you can pass it on. Don't learn and keep to yourself and hide from everyone else, right? You learn, you pass it on. But when you pass it on, they learn it a lot more easier than you did. Now you have compassion. Now you have evolution, right? Now you have a path to succeed. Think in the long run. American youth should consider that so that your life is this way. Let me work hard, learn things so that my children, my children's children, or even my children's friends and their mutual friends and their families and so on and so on and so on like this can have a peaceful life, can have a good life, and can be happy.
So speaking of the importance of having compassion for people that you have never met yet, whether that's strangers in the future or your family, your grandchildren, that's a huge part of what was eliminated in China. The government wanted to replace the family unit. They encouraged children to report their parents for daring to commit wrong thing, and they would send parents to separate work assignments in different cities, especially if they were not in favor of the Communist Party, because they wanted to punish dissenters. And those are some of the nicer things that they did, if we could get more into detail.
Yeah, that's the kindest it can be.
Yeah,
right? That's the nicest.
so it got very vivid. Now, I don't want to push you to talk about it, but is there anything we could talk about with your grandparents and what they experienced going through this? How old were they when this started to rise up in the late or 50s, 60s?
My grandparents have to have been young.
Yeah.
They were young. And I don't know too much about them.
Yeah.
They were executed. My father was almost like an orphan. He lost his parents at a very young age.
Really?
My mother the same way, which is how the two met, right?
Did they meet in China and leave together?
In Vietnam.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, they met in Vietnam briefly, but they didn't talk.
Wow.
And then in Vietnam, before you can come to the United States at the time, you have to travel to Vietnam, to Cambodia, Thailand, and stay in the Philippines almost for 6 months, maybe 8 months. I think he stayed there for 8 months so that they can teach you English, not be culture shocked or anything like that. It's like training to live inside the United States before they came here.
That's nice. Now, do we know why your grandparents were executed, or is that?
My grandfather was he was almost like a construction worker, like a carpenter. And he was developing a project for people to practice their spiritual faith. And he was very, very passionate. From what I've heard, he was very, very passionate about sculpting religious sculptures out of marble.
Wow.
He could get a chisel. He did it for fun. Like chisel, he made Buddhist sculpture. Any religion, he would make the sculpture for it, right? And he'd sell it. And his buddies, they would build homes and all that stuff. That's how they hung out back in the day. They would do work together. And so, yeah, he was a part of a project that was supposed to be very discreet. And someone, I don't know if I have the story right, but they believe that there was an individual who reported to be in favor of the Communist Party, and they reported this underground project for people, like you wanted to practice Christianity, you have a church, they build you a church. You want to practice being Muslim, they build you that. You want to practice Buddhism, we build you this. We build you a place for you to practice, right? Anything like that, somebody found out to be in favor, to be on good terms with a certain group of people, and in that, their false sense of justice happened.
Wow.
And took over.
They reported your grandparents to the communists.
Yeah. Or even the entire group, the entire working class, the entire working group, the people who were working on it.
Now, does your father ever share what it was like? Because I'm always interested in the day-to-day, the survival of that moment. I mean, you become an orphan because your parents are executed. Do you know how old he was? Do you know what he was doing to get food, to get by? How did he plan to get out of the country? Like, I think of it as, I'm young now, I'm 25, I'm not sure how old you are, but all these young people listening, we can't imagine putting ourselves through something like
right
that.
Right now, I'm
sure.
27.
Yeah.
But my dad was an apprentice for a fisherman whenever he was 8 years old. Before he told me he would walk out in the mud. And Vietnam, they had like some sort of lakes and stuff like that. He would like hit the mud with like a rock or something, see a fish. He'd try to catch the fish with his hand. He'd get frustrated, so frustrated, some days he didn't eat. And eventually, he told me, you just get very, very frustrated to where you find a way. So that is the number one thing that I think a lot of young people should understand. Your frustration should not make you feel any less of yourself. Mm-hmm. If you fall down, don't feel bad. Don't be sad. You fail something, don't be sad. Nothing, right? That frustration lets you know you can generate to motivation. I don't want to feel this frustration again, right? I don't know how, I don't know when, but I will find a way. I will figure it out. Just that. Now you have hope. You have hope, right?
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of hope, you'll figure it out without even trying afterwards. You just frustrated. You just try like this. He was like that with the fishing net. He was an apprentice for a fisherman. He would sit on a boat, and the guy would have a net over his shoulders. My dad would watch the guy. He would throw the net, and he'd pull it in. He'd catch crabs, shellfish, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so he saw that, and he practiced. He learned with a fishing rod. He learned all those things. He learned to provide for himself by watching another man fish. Mm-hmm. At the time, nobody teach you. No one wants to teach you. Why I have to feed you for? I'm hungry too.
Yeah.
Why I have to help you? I have a son, I have my sister, I have my girlfriend, whatever, right? Why do I have to help you? So nobody taught him. He just watched and he learned. And so to some degree, he was like that with me. You want to learn? Don't ask. You watch, you see, you try. Mm-hmm. You fail, I let you fail enough to where you're not gonna kill yourself, but I will let you fail until you get so frustrated, you figure it out. Drop hints here and there.
Now, what did you think about that? Are you grateful for that style of parenting?
I hated it at first. Oh my God. But then as I got older, I saw why he did it. Mm-hmm. Because you need a little bit of bitterness and hardship. You have to endure it in a small bit by bit every day for a long-term success, right? Maybe you go to school, you don't like it, right? But you have to endure. You have to learn something. You don't have to like the subject. You don't have to like what somebody's talking about. You don't have to do anything like that. But having the habit, building the habit of saying, I may not like listening, but I will listen to my teacher. Mm-hmm. I may not like you as a person, but if you're talking, I will listen so that I will learn something. If you talk all the time, you don't learn anything. You're just rambling, nobody will hear you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really, in that, those small little things, right? Day to day, the life of survival from what he did was just watching, learning, trying, failing, knowing that everything happens for a reason. But as long as you believe in yourself that you will find a way, who knows how in your path of life, but it will happen.
Wow.
Intention. If you have intention, Really, that's all you need. Intention. What is your intent and where's your destination? You don't know? No problem. You like there? No, I don't like it. You like there? No, I don't like it. Here? Oh, hell no. For sure, no. Maybe here, maybe there. Let me see. Let me try.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a sense like that. And the intention, I want a good life. Okay, that's kind of small. I want a peaceful life. Okay, so-and-so. I want an abundant life. I want a healthy life. Still very small. I want a good life so that I can give others a good life, so that I can teach other people how to have a good life, and thereon, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, to where everyone has a good life. There is no obscure false path.
Yeah.
Right? And now, with that intention, high amounts of compassion, in Buddhism, we call this bodhicitta, right? I want to gain enlightenment to help all other beings receive enlightenment. In a sense like that. It's kind of like that. But you don't have to go that way,
That's
right?
great.
You can just be a good person and wish well for everyone else. Work hard for that intention. It will work out.
I love that. And it made me think, I know we're not talking like on a race-based thing, but I was looking at a parenting study recently, and it's how are Asian families so much more successful and so much more high achieving, not in like the sense of status or wealth, but in the sense of a happy, healthy family. And it's because they have not only high compassion, but high accountability.
High.
And the different races, they all have different levels of those things, but it's Asians that because of their lineage, because of their traditions and their culture, they have both of those things, and that leads to the best success for a child, because you want to give them tough love to help them achieve their best in life. I think that's really special. And so your father like raised himself once he was in Vietnam. Is that how he became a man?
Yes.
And eventually did he meet his mom or your mom there? What was that like? Do you know the story?
Hungry, and there was no compassion at the time. The two had, they were friends at first, compassion for each other. And he was very driven, and because of that, she followed, you know?
Wow.
She followed because of, one was dignity, honor. He'd been through a lot, but he didn't want to project it on anyone.
So his character is what really attracted her to him.
Was that, from what she told me, the two are split up now, but one thing she told me when I was young was that she knew whenever something very serious happened, but he found peace in it by taking his walk, smoking his cigarette, going with his friends, talk a little bit to find closure for what happened, what he saw, what he dealt with before he came back to her. And that was something he always did every single time.
Did he say why?
Because he believed in his mind that suffering ends with me. That's it. No one needs to know. Why do you want to know?
Yeah.
That's the character behind that. The harshness, the brutality, and everything like that. People concerned. What happened? What happened? I don't want you to know. Why do you want to know? You don't need to know. He tries to keep your mind clean, peaceful.
So I think it's really interesting. We were talking off camera about the differences experiencing survival from a masculine point of view and a feminine, of like what a woman goes through and what a man goes through. And I think your family story really portrays that in an interesting way. And do you think that helped to have each other for that journey? I mean, did they go to America together and go through that Philippines camp and everything?
Yes. You think about the Tao, right? The Tao. You have yin and yang, man, woman, sun, moon, hot, cold, hard, soft.
Oh, I love that.
Flexible, stiff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In a sense like this, you have these polarities. When you have an imbalance, now you have a problem, right? But when you have an equal distributed amount, you have flawless martial arts, also a flawless level of thinking, right? Yes, I am very firm. Yes, I am very stoic, and I am attentive, and I'm confident in myself, and I will endure through any circumstance. But I am willing to adapt and listen and let my principles mutate for the benefit of evolution, for the success of the entirety, not for the singular mind, right? To do that, you need man and woman. You need man to be the man. You need woman to fulfill her role. If one does not fulfill the other, you have depression. You're sad, you're confused, you have anxiety. Like I said earlier about the destination, if you are a man, and I'm sorry to say this if I offend anyone, but you don't act like a man, You wake up and you go, what the hell am I gonna do, right? You don't know where you're gonna go. What am I gonna do? You don't do nothing. And then you sat and you find something to mask that depression through vices, attachment, addiction. And with that, then you have the man's logical mind. Men are very logical, and their logical mind will somehow justify why that addiction and why those vices are good for him, right? To protect that obscurity path, right? And it goes on and on and on to generation, like that. With a woman, it's different. It's like feeling how you feel inside in your emotion, right? When you feel good, a lot of great things can happen. When a woman is happy, almost the whole entire room, everybody's happy. Everyone's having a good time and everything like that, right? But when you see she's sad, everyone's sad with her too. Like, what happened?
But that's a good point. You have the balance of hard and soft. And that's really interesting. Do you see, are you concerned with the attack on the American nuclear family these days? I mean, we've gone so far away in our culture. Are you concerned with what you see in society these days?
No, I'm one of the few who are not.
Oh, wow. Why?
No. Because I know and I believe, I practice Taoism and I practice meditation heavily, that because of the Tao, maybe you have a large demographic of people worried and scared about what's going on with the American family. But just in the yin yang, you also have in the dark center, you have a little bit of brightness.
Okay.
And in that, we'll call upon whichever youth, whichever individual to feel that emotion, to feel that frustration enough that they will wake up for the benefit of the entirety, right? The entirety will be a large group of people suffering, right? Afraid, concerned for the everyday lifestyle, right? And because of that, when the demographic gets large enough, there will be, we don't know who God will choose, right? We don't know who. But that person will be born. They will experience things for a reason. They will feel things and meet people for a reason, to educate themselves, to benefit themselves for the sake of the entirety. And then in that, the yin yang will transfer.
Wow.
Over. Yeah.
Now that's beautiful. So where did you learn this? Was it your father and your mother that passed these values down to you and this concept?
Originally, they passed down to me the basics. But I myself was very fascinated about these practices at a very, very young age. Whenever I was 10 years old, I would memorize the Buddhist scriptures in Vietnamese text. Then in Sanskrit, I try to learn it in Tibetan. I try to, I try to memorize like 10 lines. I try to recite it to myself, see if I remember it. I listen to audio tape. And so as I got old, when I was younger, I liked it because of the songs. They sounded like a melodic like tune. I liked it. But when I got older, we become a little bit philosophical in our 20s. You know, you get your little hippie phase on. Yeah, so I would find the English translation and try to be a little bit more articulate on what people meant, right? And in that, I started to see the divine more in my life. So when you study these things, originally we think like, oh, I want to study some sort of spiritualism. I think some sort of intense phenomenon is going to happen, right? No, that's not going to happen. You're going to wake up, the sun's going to rise, the trees are going to be the same, the ocean's going to be the same. But your perception will change the environment. Your perception and your inner level of thinking will change the way you see things. And then your heart will then project the intention. And then with your speech, and then in your action, you will influence the entire environment.
Wow.
Like this, right?
That's beautiful. You're quite good at this. You're quite good. So interesting. So what do you want to share with us about that journey to America? I mean, you have a lot of people that don't like it here and that are ungrateful. And I would say the most grateful people are the ones that made the journey or have family members that made the journey. Because like we were saying earlier, the sacrifices of the people that came before us really made us what we are today. So you're a product of that, of a lot of sacrifice. What was your family's journey to get here like? And did they experience any hard times when they first got here? I mean, was it culture shock or did they?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We call this, like how they get here, they call Người Hoa in Vietnamese. Người Hoa is like refugee. But then in the Vietnamese translation, Chinese people, it's funny. It's funny. I'll teach you a little bit of the language. In Vietnamese, when you talk about the Chinese people, in Vietnamese, we pronounce them as người Tao, right? And that means boat people. What does that mean? They got on the boat as a refugee, make it to the United States or to wherever, right? You're fleeing your country, right? In a sense like that. I believe in that time, my parents had told me that only during the Lunar New Year, the Vietnamese or Chinese New Year, they receive one pair of clothing for that year.
Wow.
Sometimes you don't, right? So you have to make it work. My mother told me for a long time she lived with 2 pairs of clothes for a long time, which was why when I was younger, she would always decorate me in red colors, red clothes, gold clothes, or stuff like that. She always gives me abundant amount of clothes because I was literally like the boy version of her, right? And so she would decorate me and my sister with a bunch of clothes all the time, take us to the store, buy a lot of clothes because she knows that she had to make 2 pairs work. In America, you're hungry, you want to go to Walmart, you have a place you can buy food. You have money, you can buy food, you can buy whatever you want, right? Some places over there, you have money, okay, but does the store have it? Do they have the materials for it, or did they sell it to somewhere else, right? You want milk, baby milk. You just had a child, you want baby milk, but maybe you cannot afford real milk. Now you have to afford instant milk, right? But what if where you are, that powdered milk isn't 100% powdered milk? Maybe they put concrete in there or something else.
Which is done.
Has
been done before.
You know this. Yes, we all know this. So in that, over here, a great thing that most people need to be able to appreciate the most, you know what I mean, is to be able to be a consumer. Work hard, you have money, you already have the path to succeed. But also knowing that your country has given you an environment for the consumer to trust what they buy so that they can work hard, make money, buy that product, and know that what they paid for was what they got, right? Even enough to where you can make a review and complain about it so much to where they have to make it better for you. Man, you have it good. What you complain for? You know what I mean? Like that's something we have to think about day by day. The sacrifice, when I talk about me, I don't ever want to be only about me. I want to make it about everyone else. And in this country itself, right? You think about where we are right now. Inside of this room, we have artifact pistols. You have the Holy Bible of Abraham Lincoln. You have all of these artifacts here, right? And what does that mean? It means that there was men before, maybe your age today, 25, maybe my age, 27, some other people age 22. They have a wife, very happy. They love their wife a lot, very touching story. But one day they have to tell them, I have to go. I have to go. For who? Not for you, but for the future, right? And the wife has to accept that. That hard acceptance. She has to stay home and accept that. And the man has to accept that maybe I never see her ever again, but I have to fight. I have to. For people who may never appreciate me. For people who may never even know my name. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And in that, the fighter's heart, the heart of the fighter, the heart of the warrior, the path comes into play. Whether you die or whether you win, come try me. I want to find out. You know what I mean? In a sense like that, people die for you, but you don't even know them. People die for you, me, him, her, everyone, right? We never met them. We never seen them. We can't even have the conversation. You look in the spiritual side, right? We have many spiritual people from before who I believe have sacrificed themselves for the entirety, for forgiveness, for compassion, right? This is in all practices, not just one. This is all practices. Everyone has had some sort of story like this where someone has given themselves up for the better. In one of my recent meditations that I have done, I was sitting out in a park, and a lot of times when you practice meditation, you start off by just watching your breath, right? And you'll sit there, you'll watch yourself breathe until you start seeing in third person view. I saw a fruit tree, across the street. And then I had a slight observation that was very similar to our world. Human world, right? On this planet. And it is this. The fruit tree, you have an apple. The apple will grow. Sometimes it would decay. You'll fall into the roots, right? It doesn't commit anything to mankind, to Mother Nature or anything at all. The apple will rot, decay, turn into the soil, only to contribute itself to the soil so that it can go to the tree, so the tree can grow another apple. It fails its purpose, it falls down, and repeats the cycle of creation and destruction again and again, right? Eventually, one day, in compassion, the apple realizes, I must fulfill my role as an apple for the entirety in my compassion, right? And in that, it harmonizes itself with its tree, its environment, what it's given, the opportunities and the circumstances that it has, to where it has that nice red color, it smells very good. You see a bird eat it, the bird doesn't like the seed, fly somewhere else, spit out the seed. And then that seed becomes another apple tree, right? This observation that I have witnessed in Mother Nature. Remember the first word, Mother Nature. The first word, mother first, okay? In this observation with Mother Nature, you have that here in this room. That what I just told you about the apple tree is not just for that side of nature, but for what human have made, willing for the sacrifice in compassion for the future, so that future youth can have the liberty, can have the freedom to have a successful life, to lead others to a successful life. What if none of this ever happened, right? What if none of this ever happened, all of this here? We wouldn't even have a smartphone. I wouldn't even know you, you wouldn't know me. No way I could contact you, and there's no way we would ever meet each other. We are in a time where it's happening so fast.
It is.
We are in a time to where things are becoming more and more complex. And as youth are learning today, I highly encourage you, because I'm a fighter, right? I can educate myself as much as I can. But what I would say for the youth is to learn and be into today's time. Be into today's time and have the compassion for the future.
Yeah.
And you will find value in that. You will find happiness in that.
Well, I think what they struggle with too is comparative history. And so a good example of this, I mean, your father saw what true poverty is, right? Not being able to eat that day if you couldn't find food. Now, because of economic independence, because of the classical liberalism that was implemented in America with our founding, we have, especially in the last 100 years, eliminated 90% of worldwide poverty, because of the rise of the West, because of these values. And now you have American leftists, a lot of people our age, that say poverty is rampant in our country and capitalism is evil and we need to have socialism or communism. It's leading them to say, because we now have this 10% that still exists, this entire system is a failure and corrupt, and so we must go back. And instead of saying, wow, we've come so far, they're looking at what the current situation is, and they're completely ungrateful for the progress that has been made, the real progress. And so is there anything that can be learned from the stories of actual struggle, like your father's, like your mother's, that our generation needs to hear specifically? I mean, do you see any connection with that?
I can see a connection with that, but I can also have a connection with my own experience.
Yeah.
Living here in the United States.
Really?
The power of capitalism is very, very powerful, right? If I offend anyone, that's okay, right? If you're offended, you're offended. But if you allow a group of people to tell you how much everyone receives and gets, right? That seems like compassionate at first. At first, yes, it sounds like a good idea. Everyone gets enough, yes, 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 yes. But to allow that, to put that in the hands of another, maybe I might be wrong and you might put in the right person, but what about the person after that who comes after them? What about the people around them that can easily influence that mind, right? It's not gonna work. I'm sorry, right? But with capitalism here in the United States, I teach Muay Thai. I teach martial arts to young kids. I teach Muay Thai, private lessons all the time. I make money for this. But because of our capitalism, my ability to be able to even have that business, to be able to have that set of income, I can easily one day say, I would do an open workshop for people. You don't have to pay money. You can bring school supplies and Christmas toys. And they come, and within 1 hour, I can teach martial arts for 1 hour and receive all of those things. And by the second hour, I can drive to Richardson to a foster care and donate those things to kids I never seen before. They don't need to know my face. They don't need to know my name. They don't even need to appreciate the merit. Nobody needs to know. But what the most important thing in that is, and though I just said that on camera, the intention of mine was to remove the obstacle of another's life whose circumstances were not the same as mine. Mm-hmm. With capitalism, if you practice it with compassion, it is very much more powerful than putting it in the hands of another to tell them how much everyone gets.
Yeah.
But if you find your value, your life's purpose, and you educate yourself to fulfill that purpose, you will have that power to do that too. You can make money to have for yourself, do something, do your job, you have enough to eat, pay your bills, and then maybe once a week or once a month or once every year, you can do something like that and give donation to other people's lives in America. Mm-hmm. But we are falling upon the path of vices, indulgence because of hip hop, media, and all those things. I'm a fan of hip hop. I'm not gonna lie. I like hip hop. I listen to it at the gym and everything like that. But to praise vices as though it is a holy gospel, and to project that as the truth and the light and the path that is honestly dignifying, right, is very, very wrong and is very, very singular. The ego is very, very high, right? It increases your confidence, and then you have the substance, and then you have this music, you have this sound, and now everything's all about you. So with what we have right now with American capitalism, instead of one drop of water inside of the ocean, condemning the entire sea and all the oceans for not looking at it, you have one drop of water harmonizing itself with the ocean to where it is the entire sea. That one drop is contributing to the entirety in a sense like that. And with that, you have something almost as powerful as tsunami, hurricane, everything like that. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, a force for good.
A force for good.
And I think that's really, for me, I'm so passionate about educating people on socialism and communism because I don't see it as, oh, well, you don't have as many options for products when you have this economic system, or, oh, the quality is lower, or the prices are higher. It's not as effective. I think it's an issue of control, and it takes away your self-determination. It gives a government force power over your life. And the problem is that when they control major things and they're the only provider of these services and goods, they can look at you and say, unless you comply with what we are now demanding, you're no longer going to get this product or service or this payment that you need to get by. And so it's more about getting people to want that kind of power over their own lives, getting people to want to have individuality and self-determination. And have you noticed that at all? This loss amongst especially young people to want to make decisions for ourselves? Or do you see that that's more on the rise these days? Because I'm very optimistic about this.
Yes.
And I think if we communicate this to young people, we can really get them excited about this once again.
When you think only about yourself, you can only get so far. Mm-hmm. I think there was a African proverb. I really love this proverb a lot. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. Mm-hmm. If you want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. I love that saying so much, right? That's a very famous proverb. If you have a problem making a decision of what you want to do with your life, then don't consider your life only yours, but only for others. Mm-hmm. You thought about, I want to learn how to do this to help everyone else with their passion. I want to practice I want to practice martial arts, hone my martial arts so that I can teach another individual on not taking so much damage and being efficient at the same time, right? And in that, I can also teach people character, humility, the loss of the ego, in a sense like that, perseverance and patience, so that you yourself, if anyone looks up to me, please don't look up to yourself. Look up to yourself. If you like martial arts, if you like a fighter, you don't have to be a fighter. The fighter's already in you, in your path. the world champion. You don't need this to feel like the world champion. You don't need to put on the gloves and fight on stage to be a fighter, right? You can fight with your struggles, with yourself. You beat yourself every single day. And you do that, you learn something by 1%, a little bit by bit, 1 year, 2 years, you're totally different.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think the more we encourage people to take ownership of their own lives, but in a way that serves others, instead of seeing government as the one and only way to help other people, people will take on that responsibility to improve themselves as individuals, and then that will help other people as well. So, John, we've talked a lot about all of your family story, and I think it's really important these days to hear stories about communist China, because we don't learn about it enough in the public education system here in the country. And now they're on the rise on the world stage, and we're going to be dealing with them. Unfortunately, though, most Americans don't understand the communist regime of the past is the same communist regime we're dealing with today, the CCP. And so I'm kind of curious to get your opinion on when COVID hit and the left and the CCP, so the American left and the Chinese Communist Party, were both saying you can't blame China for anything having to do with COVID because that means you're racist against Chinese people. And they started using woke ideology to shun anybody that was trying to blame the Chinese Communist Party. So for us, I saw there's a huge difference between blaming the Chinese people and blaming the CCP, the political party, the regime that caused a lot of problems and has just been devastating to humanity for decades at this point, over 100 years. Now, did you have any thoughts on that? I mean, there was the hashtag Stop Asian Hate, and this was all around this misconception that people trying to find accountability for COVID were hating Chinese Americans. My message to everybody for the longest time was, you guys, most Chinese Americans escaped the CCP and dislike them just as much as we do.
The first question that they should look was right there. Chinese Americans. I'm in America too. Why are you mad at me? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. What are you talking about? I was here with you. What are you talking about? But if you look at it, don't look at the demographic of people. The government, if a person is wrong, they are wrong.
Yeah.
Don't matter where you're from, doesn't matter anything like that. If your values or to save yourself costed the time and health of thousands or billions or the entire world, right? Then you have to hold yourself accountable to that.
Yeah, and this is about a system of government, not about a body of people.
Yes, and that is the most important thing, is that when they had that situation, maybe in the confusion or they didn't really understand what was going on, that in their frustration and because we were secluded and quarantined, they would just identify Chinese people as that, to be like, hey, I want to hold you accountable. I want you to be accountable. Therefore, I'm going to treat you this way or do what they do, right? That is from confusion. That is from being obscure. That is from having the wrong beliefs, the wrong sense of justice, right? When you want to hold the government accountable for it, they put it on something else, or they'll do something else in a sense like that. And so before you condemn somebody, you need the evidence, and you also have to know who you are condemning. During that time, I had received a lot of discrimination.
Really?
Very, very heavily. I went to a supermarket with my family, and I left my stepmother alone, and somebody was talking to her some type of way, and eventually, obviously, my stepmother knows who I am. And so she sees this guy yelling at her, talking in some type of way. And I walked in and I said, hello, sir. He changed his mind. He said, oh, never mind. And he walked away in a sense like that. Obviously, I'm not trying to get violent with people, but I hope in that moment, that individual itself, it even seemed like he himself, maybe from what was going on or the path that the conflict was going, he then realized, right, she's just here with me, right? And Chinese people, Chinese Americans are Americans, right? We have fled that. We have lived there to live here. Otherwise, if there was really a resentment to have for any of that, is to find if that had happened and all of a sudden all of the Chinese Americans just left the United States and went back to China and then left America for all that stuff, then you can have suspicion.
Right?
Then you can have suspicion. But if everyone left and stayed here and it caught all of us off guard, there's nothing really to be mad about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that biggest lesson is the Chinese people, both the ones that still live in China and the Chinese Americans, they are victims of the CCP. And so we need to hold the CCP accountable, treat them as the evil regime of government that they are, and then work to help the people. And what I found fascinating, whenever I interview people that maybe were college students during the Tiananmen Square massacre period, they were always raised up with this indoctrination that the West needed to be saved and that China was so great. And once they started to realize the West versus the East and what was actually happening over in other countries, they started to realize that they'd been being lied to. And I always find that so interesting. Now, I kind of want to shift and give you an opportunity to talk about your future and what you want to focus your goals on. I love that you want to serve others and you want to improve yourself, but in that greater purpose to serving your community and your country. And I wish more people would do that. Can we hear what you have planned for yourself and for the people around you?
My competitive career, fighting, martial arts is my life. It's my life all the way. And to be a better martial artist, I pursue business, right? And I don't want to be only a brute. I want to be a strategist. With strategy, you can beat brutes, right? And I hope that maybe when I'm retired, maybe when I'm too old to fight, I can't do martial arts anymore. I have made an outstanding career and I have developed a high amount of knowledge so that whenever I retire, I can teach and pass on my teachings, hoping that whoever I teach, whoever I have encountered, whoever has saw me, seen, heard me, interacted with me in any shape or form, I had benefit them to their success.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be the best for sure. And I want to change my environment, change my life and prove myself for me, you know, for everyone.
I love that. Now let's close this out on a positive note. I liked hearing that you are training students and younger kids too.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of lessons do you hope as you take on more trainings and start to spread it to the next generation? What kind of values do you want these young kids to learn and take on in the adult world?
Patience and coexisting with one another. These children, they have a government. They have their own government going on. I'm serious. When I teach my kids class, in the beginning, these kids don't know who I am. They just see this some tall dude and he's a little scary looking. They say, "Oh my God, that's an adult." And so they'll look and they'll be like, "Are you trying to play?" We don't know. So they'll send one of the more braver ones to come up to me and he'll be like, "Hi, my name's Daniel." And I'll be like, "Hello, Daniel." And then I'll play with Daniel a little bit. I'll be nice to him. When I say that, it's like I'm interacting with the kid. And Daniel would then go back. He talked to all the other kids. And all of a sudden, they're like, okay, he's nice, he's trying to play. Then they cooperate with me. And then you see the boys. I talk to the boys and I'd be like, oh, you do it a kick, try do 10. I challenge them. They're able to do it. I can be technical with them. With the girls, I cannot.
Really?
I cannot.
I've heard this before from other people too.
can't.
What do you mean by that?
When I tell the girl, if I ever told one of my girls, I said, you have to pivot your foot when you kick. You have to block when you do this or anything like that. In her mind, she will have doubt in herself. And then she'll think about it too much, leading to more, oh my God. And then she pays for it, right? But when I tell her, that was a good kick. Let's bring up those good kicks. Let's bring back that good guard. Let's bring back the positive reinforcement for her. She comes out more.
That's fascinating.
That women are empowered by compliment because they love their worth. They want to shine more. They're empowered by that. The men are empowered by challenges, right? And as the teacher to these children, when I show them that I am very fully aware of who I'm speaking to at that time, that I don't treat them all the same. I talk to Vivian the way I talk to Vivian as Vivian. I talk to Daniel as Daniel. I talk to everyone as their own individuality. Then they understand that their teacher cares about them. You know what I mean?
I do.
And so when they see that and they have the interaction with me, they don't have to remember me. You don't have to give me anything. You don't have to do anything like that. But that experience that they had it would stick with them because they're so young. And then they pass it on. They pass it on and on and on and on like this. Right?
It's a respect for them, and I love that.
Yes. These are people. They're people too. They're just little people. But it's the same. Just people.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck. Is there any way we could stay connected with you? How can people support you? Do you have any links that you want to share? And we'll put them in the description of the video as well.
I have an Instagram, _ John Tao. You can follow me there. I'm active sometimes. Sometimes I'm not, but if you like it, then yeah, go ahead, give me a share, give me a follow, like, and yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for
Thank you
taking the
for having
time.
me.
I hope you have fun sparring tonight.
Oh, thank you. I will.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Hey guys, it's Morgan. Before we head out, I just want to say thank you for watching The Freedom Records, and thank you so much to American Journey Experience for letting us film here in Dallas, Texas at their vault. You guys, this place is filled with world and American history artifacts. It's fascinating to learn the details of the objects that are right behind us on set. So thank you to American Journey Experience for letting us film here, and actually, you guys can come here yourself. So go to the link in our bio to learn how you can do that and how you can get connected to this great place.